So I watched this interview that Carl Lentz said. I've watched several interviews that Lentz has given, by the way, because I wanted to make sure that I sought this out. I could have talked about this last week, and I was actually preparing to, but I wanted to watch even more interviews that he gave. I've watched him address this issue now more than a handful of times. I watched this full interview. I've watched others that he's done. And I have to say, I feel that he is disingenuous. The argument that is put forward is that somehow your religion is false if you're silent on issues that hurt my people. That's what he said. He said, silent on issues that hurt my people. And he's presupposing here that the issue by itself is inequality, which has been biblically addressed. And it's discussed. Inequality and bigotry, and it is an immoral action. There's nothing that Carl Lentz can add to Scripture that is going to emphasize this in any more of a strong way than God already has. It is the act of taking it upon yourself, the idea that you and you alone, you were taking this over from God, that you were going to judge someone else's measure of redemption. And Lentz doesn't acknowledge the political aspect of this. He does not acknowledge that this is a Marxist movement that, like so many other far-left movements, is trying to pull a hurt and rescue and claiming that it is representing something, but yet it isn't. He doesn't acknowledge this issue. So I don't know why that conversation is taking place in the church. He was asked this question, why is the white church silent? And instead of Lentz questioning the validity of something like this that projects the very bigotry, by the way, the point that this conversation is based on opposing, he literally says as his answer to this quote, because this stuff causes problems. What stuff? This is part of this national thing that I've seen where pastors are bending the knee. He says that the church is a dirty house and that cleaning house is too difficult because this is what he said, and I'm quoting him. This is what happens with racism. The moment you start looking into this or that, that's when you realize, oh, wow, this goes all the way to the top. This is in our church choir. It's in our church administration. It's in the way we were taught the Bible. And there are a lot of Christians out there who set to clean out house until they find out how close to home it may come, end quote. That is a huge indictment of the kingdom. I don't know what church that Carl Lentz has attended in his life, but I have not ever walked through the doors of a single church that espoused the bigotry, the likes of which Carl Lentz is accusing churches of doing here, or even remotely acting in that way. Never. And I really feel like if he took this as half as seriously as he professes, he wouldn't be so glib in the discussion, and he would speak in concise, evidence-based answers. He actually said, as one of his responses, that he was describing how homeowners shove things, like whether it's a laundry basket or something else, when they have company come over, they put things that they don't want guests to see. They shove it in one room of the house, and that apparently the church accommodates racism like this, and he accuses the church of doing it for decades. He says, in the American church, as far as I know, he says there are two types of people. He says people who genuinely want to be part of the problem or people who are genuinely upset that they got caught. So there's that's in his world. He thinks that you are a racist no matter what. That's Carl Lentz's view. And then that's when he says at 4 minutes in that he thinks churches, his direct quote, might be one of the biggest propagators of racist ideology in the country. So if he's talking about that, if principle is valuing people and the practical should be evidence of that, is he not doing that? Because the only thing that I get from Carl Lentz's multiple interviews on this is that he's a giant racist who is seeking redemption. And he goes to racist churches. That's all I get from this. I mean, I've watched this interview 3 times. Unless there's something I'm missing here, which I doubt, I don't get this point. I don't get this. It's a shallow conversation.